it's Deborah Jason with Creative Whispers of the Heart. And in this video, I am demonstrating how I painted this lion with alcohol inks. What you see here is a royalty-free image that I purchased from a company that I have a subscription with. And I'm using this reference photo just to outline the lion's face. I'm not really going to do everything with his mane that you see in this image, but I'm taking a pencil and just going around, drawing the lion's face, at least the white area of his face. I have a piece of graphite or carbon paper underneath so that it will transfer to a piece of Dura-Bright white from Grafix. So I just go around all those areas. I'm not filling in his nose and mouth or his eyes. I just want his face and his ears, checking to make sure it goes through, and so far so good. So I continue on, just outlining. There you can see it's still working, doing his eyes. And you can see his eyes, they have some of those black lines from his mane going through them. Same with his nose and mouth. But here he is, now on my paper. Again, this is Grafix Dura-Bright white. Now I'm taking masking fluid. Something to know with masking fluid is I personally take my brush and dip it in some dishwasher soap. Then I put it in the masking fluid. It prevents the brush from getting all goopy and gunky. This is a pretty inexpensive brush, but I am filling in all the white area of the lion's face. It's not real precise, but I do the best I can to follow all those lines, just dipping into the masking fluid and going around the eyes, the nose, the mouth. I don't want to fill in the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. I want to go around them with the masking fluid. When I'm done filling in his face, as well as his little ears up there, I'm going to let him dry overnight. Some people let masking fluid dry for a couple of hours. I prefer to let it sit overnight just to play it safe. Finishing up his ears, and then here's how he's looking with the masking fluid. I'm now taking a alcohol ink marker. This color is Burnt Siena, and I'm going to use it, as you can see, for filling in his eyes, his nose, and his mouth. So I just fill it in. By the way, I have sped up this video in quite a few places just to make sure that I keep you engaged and hold your attention. There are his eyes. And now, as you can tell, I'm going a little quicker here, filling in his mouth with that Burnt Siena alcohol ink marker. This brand of alcohol ink markers is not very well known. It was a gift to me from a friend, but you can consider alcohol ink markers from Ohu Ohu, or Spectrum Noir makes a nice set of alcohol ink markers. Filling in his nose there. Not using any alcohol at this point, just filling it in with the alcohol ink marker. So here he is, all filled in. Now I pour down isopropyl alcohol, and I'm starting with butterscotch. I'm blowing it with the blowing tool in the direction I want his mane to go. And I will be rotating between various colors. Right now, as you can see, I'm using butterscotch. That's alcohol. And going back and forth up toward the corner of the paper. This is some Dijon. Because the lion's mane is not just going to be one color, as you saw in that reference photo. It's going to be various shades of yellow. That again was some Dijon, and I'm blowing it up toward the corner. And I just go around the paper, rotating between the butterscotch and the Dijon, sometimes just pouring down ink, like there. Other times pouring down alcohol and then some ink and blowing. just going around the paper. Here's how he's coming along. And you can see it's a repetitive process, rotating between or alternating between the two different color inks, pouring down alcohol sometimes and other times just pouring down ink, like right there. Now he's about halfway done on one side, but I go back and I just rinse and repeat, blowing the ink up toward the top to create his mane. And so far, I'm pretty happy with the way that he's looking. I will keep turning the paper around so that when I blow the inks, it goes in the direction I want it to go. In some areas, like right here, it's going to go off to the left of his face, up to the corner of the paper. Here's how he's coming along. And now I'm speeding this up some more, but you can tell what I'm doing is basically going back and forth between Butterscotch and Dijon. He's looking pretty cool, I think. Back and forth with the various colors. I decided to paint this lion because recently I had the good fortune of becoming a great aunt, and my two little nieces were given names that are derivatives of names that stand for lion and lioness. So this is my painting in honor of those two twin babies. He's coming along pretty well here, wrapping it up and getting toward the bottom of my lion. Just finishing up with a couple of touches of Dijon and Butterscotch. So here he is, all his fur around his mane. But I decide now I want to add a little different shade of yellow, so I put down some lemonade. I'm just putting it in a few spots. I'm not going around his whole mane, just to lighten it up here and there with the lemonade. So the three colors I've used are Butterscotch, Dijon, and Lemonade. As I continue around the lion, a few more finishing touches. And here he is. And there's the reference photo. You can see my inks look very different than the reference. Now I'm going to fill in his mane, or the waves, I guess you would call them, in his mane. I'm taking a micron pen. I start with a micron pen. You'll see later on I switch. But I'm going through and creating waves of his fur. Does a lion have fur or does he have hair? I'm not sure. And in my reference photo, some of those black lines are in his eye. So you can see I'm starting from his eye. I'm not worried about those black lines on his face because that's where the masking fluid is. Eventually, I'll remove the masking fluid and those black lines will go away. So again, I'm speeding this up. I just draw those lines in various directions, to the right, to the left, making them wavy, going across, going up and down in various directions. Here, my pen wasn't working very well. I switched to another pen, but that still wasn't working very well. So now I'm using a black Posca pen. And again, drawing those lines all around to create his mane. Going from his nose, he's not blowing his nose. Those lines are going to go away that you see on his face. But in the reference photo, there are little black lines through his nose and mouth and his eyes. And just doing a little bit of cross-hatching in there. And you can do this as much or as little as you like to create the movement in his mane, as if the wind was blowing through it. Now I'm taking a microtip applicator with a little bit of alcohol on it and creating these little dots. I find that doing this sort of, see there, in there, I don't have that microtip applicator saturated. I put a little bit of alcohol on it, I tap it on a paper towel, and then I go back and dot it on the ink and watch it bloom. It just kind of gives a little bit more definition to his mane. Dot, dot, dotting. If you've watched any of my other videos, you see I like to do that a lot. Sometimes dotting and sometimes splattering the alcohol or sometimes splattering some ink. See? Creates those little tiny dots. So I'm just going around and doing that in a variety of spots around his mane. I don't want the alcohol to bloom too much. You can see it's blooming there, but just enough to create some definition and some highlights around his mane. Here's how he's coming along. Now it's time to remove that masking fluid. I just use my fingers to do this. Some people use an eraser. See, there's the masking fluid coming off. And sorry, my camera gets shaky because I'm shaking it as I move that masking fluid off his face. But now you can see in most cases, the black lines have disappeared. There is one little line off there on the left. There I'm doing his ears, cleaning off all the goop of the masking fluid. So here's my Lionheart. That's what I'm calling it. I think his face looks like a heart. But I'm going to go in and try to clean that up there, and it's smearing a bit. Since these pens are not alcohol-based, they don't lift up with alcohol. So I'm trying to clean up a couple of spots on the lion's face. I try a blending pen that has some alcohol on it. That smeared it up. And I left this in the video just so you could see what happens sometimes when you make things that don't quite go your way. That blending pen wasn't really doing what I wanted, but I keep trying. Then I decide instead what I will do is clean up some of those marks with a white Posca pen. So I'm going in with a white Posca pen, and under his mouth there where I had sort of that smearing black pen, I'm filling it in to kind of clean up what I felt was looking a little messy. See right there? Just touching up the lion's face in that spot. Then there's a little line there that I want to touch up, so I go in there with my Posca pen and going around there by his nose and touching it up there, just a little spots here and there to clean up. The masking fluid sometimes, as you can see, leaves a little bit of marking. It's not always a perfect science. Now I'm taking that black Posca pen and going back to the eyes. Again, in that reference image I had, there were some lines kind of cross-hatching in the eyes. So I'm just touching that up a little bit. My hand covers it up, I'm sorry, but don't know how else to do that without my hand getting in the way. But there I'm doing his eyes. Going back to his eyes, touching him up here and there, to his nose. I often find that painting with alcohol inks is kind of intuitive. Even when you have a reference image, you can go with what your intuition says as you create each painting. So here's how my Lionheart is coming along. I'm really happy with it. I really think his mane looks very cool. Now I pick up the white Posca pen again, decide I need to touch up some spots a little bit more. Around there by his mouth. And up there by his eye, his little left eye over there. And now I'm going to go, I don't like the way his ears are looking. So I'm going in there with a white Posca pen and filling in his ears. Making them a little more visible or whiter, I guess you could say. And just going around so that his ears look as white as his face does. Then when I'm done with that, I decide I want some more dots. I pick up my microtip applicator with a little bit of alcohol on there, and I go back in and start dotting some more. So the alcohol on the microtip applicator lifts the ink and just creates a nice effect, and I feel like it gives a bit more definition so that you could see his mane. Doesn't he look very cool? But I'm not done. I'm going back with a black Posca pen and I'm going to outline his ears. And I'm going to eventually also outline his face. So just going around there with the black Posca pen. On that one ear. And then I'll go to his left ear and fill that, well, not fill it in, outline it instead, not fill it in, outline it with the black Posca pen. And now I'm going to go around his face and outline that with the Posca pen. I take my time. I don't always have the steadiest hand, so I'm trying to go gently around there, following the outline from the tracing that I did when I had the graphite paper there. And going all the way around my Lionheart. So I'm almost done with him. I hope if you enjoyed this video that you will give this technique a try. Find a reference image that you like. Make sure it's royalty free, as the one that I used here. And create your lion and his beautiful lion's mane. Again, the colors I used were a Burnt Siena marker, some Butterscotch, some Dijon, and a little bit of Lemonade. And then I used the black Micron pen, but I switched to a black Posca pen, and I used a white Posca pen, and of course 91% isopropyl alcohol. I'm going to outline his eyes. My pen is giving me a little bit of a hard time. I tried again and it's still giving me a hard time, so I did it off screen. But eventually I outlined his eyes, his nose, and his mouth, and I have my Lionheart. If you like this video, I hope you'll give the technique a try. And of course, I always appreciate it if you comment or share or like the video. And of course, if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.